it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you the March 2022 Tag It Tuesday Prompt Challenge, which is provided by a Facebook group called Tag It Tuesday that is run by Sherry Whitfield. And she's been doing this for quite a few years, and so I just like to sometimes play along. You know, I like prompt challenges. It's something that gives me a reason to do something creative that's quick. Doesn't I don't have to think super hard because I'm kind of following through the prompts, and I just, I go to prompt 1 and I say, okay, here's something I can do for that. And then prompt 2, prompt 3, I just keep going through it. I love doing that kind of stuff. It's really it soothes my soul to do it. So for March, the first step was to add something metallic. That could be paint, that could be paper, it could be something literally metallic, whatever. I decided to use aluminum tape, which is like tin foil with sticky stuff on the back. It's something you can get from a hardware store. And so I put that on my manila shipping tag and spreaded it down with a bone folder to make sure that it was really pressed down well. And then the next thing was use a straight edge, and I decided to use a stencil. I also used my metal straight edge too in a minute, but I took a ball tool, which is called a stylus sometimes, and I traced the stencil onto the back of my tag, and I put something squishy underneath it, which this is a fun foam sheet, and you could use a mouse pad or something like that, anything squishy, so that the ball can press down further. When you do it on a hard thing, there's not as much space for it to press into the cardstock. And that makes marks, makes raised marks into that tinfoil side. So now I have some pattern from that stencil onto the tag. The colors this time were turquoise and copper, so I decided to get out some copper paint some turquoise paints in different colors. I'll get out copper later, but it's there's a thing where it says to use a sponge brush to make marks. I use the sponge brush also to just paint over the tinfoil, and then I took a sanding block, for wood, a sanding block, and I scratched over it, and where the areas were raised from pressing the design in from the back, I was able to scratch off the paint on those raised areas, and it gets it back to the metallic stuff, which looks kind of cool, right? It gives it a pattern. Then I needed to add in my copper with my turquoise, so I used some high flow acrylic from Golden in fine copper color, and put that on and let it drip down, let it kind of go into the cracks, and that's how I ended up with the background of pattern and turquoise and copper. Then I had this piece of a strip of collage stuff from when I'd been gel printing the other day that I wanted to use because it had those same type of colors. It wasn't copper, it was more like a sienna color, a rusty color of paint with some turquoise teal colors. And I thought it'd be fun to put a little bit of collage on here. Before I did that, though, I went ahead and tore it and got it ready. Then I decided I would do just a little bit of distressing with a dry brush technique. This is black gesso on a brush that's super dry, and I try to get most of the paint off the bristles and then just sweep it over to catch some of the raised areas and give a little bit of like a grungy effect. I also finger painted a little bit with some of the paint that was left on my palette with some more to add in some more of that turquoise and give like a more visual pattern because everything was kind of flat. Even though I used multiple colors, it was still kind of flat. So now I'm doing my collage portion. I found a scrap of something. I found that other the scrap I originally had. I got a strip of black text weight paper to add to it, giving some contrast. The black definitely gives contrast because even the piece that I picked as my main collage component is still kind of matchy-matchy with the background. So I wanted to get something a little bit more dramatic on there. So I'm using bits of black text weight paper and putting them on here and there, adding a little bit more, just until I like it. I don't have to cover everything with collage, but I do enjoy gluing a little bit of paper on there to make it more interesting. And then I still have some of that black gesso, so I added that too by just putting it in places and then blending it with my finger. Now I have black gesso on my finger, like you do. And then I also eventually brought back, and I guess not yet. I guess I put a little bit of that copper over the pattern on that collage paper as well, where the sienna rusty color was. I painted over the top of it with this same copper, fine copper golden high flow paint, which to me is an acrylic ink. Basically, it's acrylic ink. So then I had this other strange shaped bit from another project left over, and I glued that down on there to give even more pattern. It kind of reminds me of a silhouette of the, like a city in front of the moon, that type of situation. And the stencil that I use looks like a map, like lines on a map. So I thought the city and the map thing going together, although very abstracted, still kind of go together. Then this is where I came back in with the sponge brush again and made a few marks because I reread that prompt. It didn't just say use a sponge brush. It said use a sponge brush to make marks. So I added in more mark making. A little bit more dripping down the tag. I like to drip down tags for some reason. I like to use fluid acrylics and drip down. It's interesting to me with a little water and a little paint. So then I also used a little bit of Stabilo All pencil to kind of make a few marks, but not much because it was scraping off the paint off of that aluminum that's underneath. Wanted to come off when I went over it with the pencil, so that didn't really work very well. So now my background is pretty much done. A little bit more finger painting, just, making more pattern, more visual interest. And I do plan on adding something else to it, so this is definitely just my background. I grabbed a couple other of my stenciled pieces of paper that had similar colors. I've been doing 100 days of Stencil Girl, which means I have a lot of stenciled stuff in a basket next to me because I've been doing that every day, making, posting something stenciled with Stencil Girl stencils. So I cut a little piece of one that had predominantly turquoise, and then I cut another, I glued that to a black piece that had some metallics on it, and cut that out into a random parallelogram type shape. And I got some foam tape because the other prompt I hadn't done yet was to use foam tape to pop something up, to make something dimensional. So I've got this smaller piece of paper. I've got this foam tape. This is, it's from a hardware store, and it originally was a huge roll. I mean, I think I've had this for like 25 years because I used to use it in card making. And it was this huge, probably 1.5 foot across roll of tape. I think it might have something to do with installing carpet, maybe. I'm not sure, but you can definitely get a lot smaller packages of it. I know Scotch Brand even has like a small package of it. It's double-sided stick with a layer of foam in between, and it's like Pop Dots, except for it's tape, and it's inexpensive to buy it that way, cheaper than getting something like Pop Dots. So that piece is now raised up off the tag a little bit on the video. Hard to see that, but it is. I got out some words from a sticker sheet that my friend Peg sent me, which has really interesting words on it. And I picked the ones that say "Stay Wild" because this reminded me of nighttime at a city where maybe you're you're going out and you're partying in the club and you're dancing all night and you've got your metallic-y copper dress on that's shimmering in the light. That's kind of where I was going. I know it's abstract, so you don't see it unless I tell you about it. That's the way it should be. So then I also put the foam tape on the back of the whole tag and mounted it onto a piece of black cardstock to give a little bit of an edge. And also, I just think it looks neater when you do this because the back of the tag usually gets gunk on it. It just happens. There's nothing you can do about it. I didn't position it properly at first, and I was able to take it off and reposition it surprisingly. I thought the tape would be stuck, and that would be that, but I was able to get it a little bit better centered. It's very thin edge all the way around. It covers up the back to make it look more finished. A little bit more mark making with the pencil. Then I was looking for something copper metallic in my basket of metal things. And I have these copper wire flowers that someone sent me. There was 3 of them in the package, and this was a perfect opportunity to use that, one of those. So I glued it down with Crystal Effects. That's not what it's called. Glossy Accents, it's what it's called. The Crystal Effects is a different brand. It's dimensional glue that you usually use to make something shiny and raised by putting it over the whole surface, but I just needed it to have a strong glue because, of course, it's metal. It's gluing metal down to a piece of paper. And that stuff works pretty good for that. Of course, it does not dry quickly, so as I'm messing with the tag, the thing falls off. And I basically, after I was done making the entire tag, I put something heavy over the top until it dries. And then that flower piece will be stuck on there real well. And then the last thing I did was to add some little sequins. Just for balance, something else that was a little bit shiny and metallic, closer to the bottom for balance of my composition. So I hope you've enjoyed this March Tag It Tuesday with the prompts. I hope you play along and post whatever you make in the Tag It Tuesday group over on Facebook. You can, ask to join that anytime. It's not my group. I just play along. And, of course, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, a question, subscribe if you haven't already. All those things really help my channel. That's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.